Hi, welcome to Unit 3, Lecture 3, Series Part 2. And this unit is all about alignment. So we're taking what you did last week and focusing in on how does that look in the actual classroom. So hopefully this lecture aims to look at how to better connect student progress to your professional growth and goals, meaning that your growth as an educator is um, seen through your accomplishments with achieving the goals that you have set. As we begin to set both student growth goals and personal professional growth goals, looking at how we are tracking our efforts is key. So simultaneously in the classroom, you are the educator, but you're growing while you're teaching, and the students are growing while they're learning. Tracking both is imperative to proving or showing how you've actually achieved what you set to do. By the end of this lecture, you will know the research concerning systematic student monitoring, methods of tracking student progress, and then strategies for aligning student progress to personal growth goals. In order for you to really be able to be reflective, you have to be able to look back at what you set out to do and then how did it play out in your actual environment. And that requires a system for progress monitoring, also tracking, which I know that a lot of you have systems put in place, but I'm talking about personal systems that you create to track what you are doing and also how it shows up in the student's progress as well. So for this week's readings, you have only two. I changed the other reading to a resource. You have the actual article, Monitoring Student Learning in the Classroom by Kathleen Cotton. And then you have the checklist, which is kind of a lengthy document. It's got a couple of pages, but it is the classroom progress monitoring methods that should align to your monitoring within the classroom. So it's two-part, and then the resource at the bottom. So, aligning learning to student performance goals. The key thing here is that alignment begins with reviewing your professional performance goals, which you've already started. Through this process, you should be able to identify the desired change or actions to integrate into your practices. So, reflection really is looking at in detail what you have done and what you need to do, and then what you're preparing to do while exploring the environment and everything that constitutes or contributes to the experience of the students during the day-to-day. So you're looking long-term, short-term, and then literally from the day-to-day. I'm going to actually show you my teacher example and how that translates into the monitoring process. So this was something that was stated in my professional development folder, and I would show you the thing, but I noticed that it has the social security number at the end, so I just copied and pasted it in. But it says here, number 2, utilize check for understanding strategies to include questions directed towards specific students to build a cooperative environment for the purpose of developing peer tutoring in your classroom. The change that they desired is higher. So what they would like to see from me, what they wanted to see from me, was using check for understanding strategies to include questions directed towards specific students to build a more engaging cooperative environment, almost like peer tutoring while they're in the process of learning, which is crazy. I mean, it's just something that just doesn't happen right away unless you think about the system that you can put it into place. So from this, I needed to figure out how to integrate check for understanding strategies in a cooperative manner, not just from an individualistic approach, but from a peer-to-peer kind of thing. So this example will be used again as we learn how to align our practices with this particular desired change. First, we're going to look at our reading. The reading here, monitoring student learning in the classroom. And this is a summation of educational research literature. I like to do the summations because that's like the heavy work, if you don't know. As a beginner researcher myself, it's kind of a daunting task to find the most specific and the most useful information regarding best practices and approaches to classroom environments because there's so many studies. So I look for these compiled articles that have kind of touched on everything so that you can get a gist of what's going on. And then the reference section gives you more options. So from this article, you'll grasp that they actually define monitoring, and it says for this purpose, monitoring as activities pursued by teachers to keep track of student learning for purposes of making instructional decisions and providing feedback to students on their progress. So monitoring is not associated necessarily to behavioral aspects unless that is one of your goals, but it is associated to making instructional decisions and providing feedback. I'm going to try to go through this as quickly as possible, but it may be a little bit longer than the other ones. So Kathleen states, when educators speak of classroom monitoring, they generally refer to the following teacher behaviors: questioning students during classroom discussions to check their understanding of materials, assigning, collecting, and correcting homework, administering and correcting tests. And then she has a few more. So, these are examples. The cool thing about this is it tells you examples of how to actually progress monitor. So here are the suggestions stated from the research, and I've highlighted the actual monitoring process throughout each of these. So the learning probe is one of them, and that refers to a variety of ways that teachers can ask for brief student responses to lesson content as to determine their understanding of what is being taught. And then research comparing the behavior of effective teachers have found that those whose students achieve highly or higher than would be expected given background variable with that of less effective teachers has clearly revealed the importance of monitoring a class during seat work. So here the seat work monitoring thing was a major pivotal thing. So what are you doing to ensure that students are actually achieving what they're supposed to when they're seated? And then another example of progress monitoring includes the assignment of homework and monitoring the homework task and the results of those. And then this one here, research has established a link between integrating monitoring methods into periodic classroom reviews. So in some way you should have quarterly or periodic reviews on what you're actually doing in the classroom. And then these last two here I didn't highlight because they were a little less specific in regards to the monitoring approach, but I summarized the major aspects of it here. So it says research has established a link between integrating monitoring methods into periodic classroom reviews and the later achievement of students involved in the review sessions. And they state here beneficial effects are noted when tests are. So this was regarding to testing, but strategic testing that aligns with certain aspects, meaning that they're administered regularly and frequently and are an integral part of the instructional approach, well aligned with the material being taught, and then collected, scored, recorded, and returned to students promptly so that they can correct errors of understanding before these become ingrained. That's a big one. I don't know how many times I have tried to test and grade so quickly, but it's hard to turn over. But the turnover is important for alignment and restructuring the learning process so students can correct any mistakes prior to it becoming a fact in their head. So those who study assessment and evaluation techniques are quick to point out that the role of standardized testing has received considerable more research attention than have classroom testing and other classroom level assessment methods, but it doesn't mean that they're not as valuable. So let's go back to the example that I'm giving you. What does all of this mean? You have all these ways to monitor the progress of students, but how does it translate into the actual goal? So using what we know from the reading, one, and you do have to read the whole article as stated previously. This is only a overview of what are some key points, but you need to read the whole thing. You should be able to align monitoring method with my professional learning goal in this case, but in your case it will be obviously yours after the reading. Look at the goal here. So it says utilize check for understanding strategies to include questions directed towards specific students to build a cooperative environment. I went back to the reading and I tried to figure out what would I actually use to ensure that I was building in some type of monitoring method. So the only one that met it the best was questioning and learning probes. This monitoring method is a great way to generate cooperative engagement through questions and learning probes. We're going to look at another example and how to track this and actually put it into action within the classroom, and I'll break the whole example down. So the other reading that you had Classroom progress monitoring methods checklist was like awesome. I've never seen anything so good in regards to breaking down the tracking methods and what you're actually looking for. So this is a great asset. So this should have been really useful to you. What I did here was break down all of these things and what you're actually assessing. So academics acquisition of basic skills. Here you are assessing basic academic skills, which are the building block skills that are the foundation for more advanced learning. And then academic fluency and basic skills. When a student has acquired basic academic skills, the next goal is often to build fluency in those skills. And then academics complex skills. So this is like the Bloom's taxonomy, but in tracking. What you're assessing here is teachers often find that they must evaluate student on higher level academic skills that are multidimensional and complex, which are usually a lot of the interactions that we have within a classroom. And then here it's academic survival skills. Academic survival skills are those global academic enablers such as time management, study skills, homework completion, note-taking required to support a strong academic performance. This here may be more relative to your overall professional growth and your community and family engagement, where you're tracking and monitoring the progress of these academic survival skills. And then behaviors, if you have a behavior report card element, which I think every level does, it just appears differently. Behavior report card is a type of rating scale that the teacher fills out on a regular basis. So you would actually systematically create a log where you were monitoring the progress of the student's behavior based on standards that you put into place. And then you would then translate that into your final report card. And then homework, which we kind of went over in the other one, but homework can be evaluated in a number of ways depending on the nature of the students presenting problems. The teacher may use one or more of the data resources below to track homework timelines, completion, and accuracy, and or quality. So hopefully you go over the whole thing. Let's go back to applying this to my actual goal. So what this looks like. We already went over the goal. I already chose the monitoring method, questioning and learning probes. Now I'm going to track this process and I'm going to assess academic skills, academics complex skills. So what that means is I'm looking at a multidimensional questioning aspect. So it wasn't just that they wanted me to check for understanding, which I was already doing. They also wanted me to include questions directed towards specific students to build a cooperative environment. So that's where the multidimensional aspect comes into play. And what that means is that the activity, which I have here at number 1, would have to require them to interact together with questions in a way that showed the complexity of showed their understanding of the complexities of the particular topic. So I decided to create a Socratic seminar or fishbowl as an activity for cooperative discussion. So I'm removed from this because I thought, how else would you be able to assess it and then to examine it after? It's very hard to do that. So by creating the Socratic seminar or the fishbowl, the students are engaging in questioning each other in a cooperative manner without me, and I'm able to observe and also take notes on the progress. To take notes, I've created rubrics for questions and learning probes prior to the discussion. I know what questions that need to be created. I can even involve the students in this aspect. It can be an assignment where they create the questions and then a rubric to go with it to tell me what makes the standard by reviewing the standard objectives that the state has already set. Then step 3, within the rubric, add standards to check off as the conversation transpires. So it's like you have your rubric the students have, and then you have your actual grading rubric. So you're grading as the conversation is taking place, and you're meeting your professional development goal while making sure that students are developing those academics complex skills, which are super important in being able to assess. So within these 3 markers, there is significant areas for me to actually see what I'm doing and create an environment that it can take place in while tracking it in real life time. Here are some final thoughts. As you complete your reading response, you will be required to complete the same process that I've just done, and it does take a little bit of time. Use within this PowerPoint to align the 2 goals you created in the last module. Be sure to try more than one monitoring method and tracking process, as this will strengthen your ability to accurately monitor and align student results to your professional development goals. The key thing here is that you're accurate and you're doing the best that you can to demonstrate the truth of what you're doing. This is a great way to find gaps, because from here, obviously, you can be able to list what your activities are and how you're using these activities to assess the goal that you have set forth. So that concludes this PowerPoint. Sorry that it was a little bit longer than expected. However, here's your bonus curriculum, and I hope that you are having a great end to your semester and have a great day.